Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and of course my they-them royalty, my name's Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. It says that I'm here to react to everything that happened in Week 12 of the NFL season, and I'll put it out there and I'll be honest with you guys. That was a lie. So, I did promise somewhere around the halfway point of the season, I kind of stop and give my thoughts on what I think is going on in the league so far. I thought I'd be able to find some kind of time to do like an extra podcast, and really what's going to happen is I'm going to do that exact podcast right now on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. We're in week 12 of the NFL season. Sorry, Trey Wingo just quote tweeted some comment. Some weird thing. Anyway, we're going to talk about what I actually think about these individual teams based off of having watched every single play that each one of them has played so far this season. Obviously, I'm not like a NFL scout or a former coach or anything like that. I'm a guy who watches football, who studied football. I played a little bit. I sucked at football when I played. So I should have a pretty good idea of what really bad football looks like for the most part. But overall, I just wanted to kind of run through everything that's been going on in the season so far and react to it, because I think it's important that I actually work on my ability to predict stuff that's going on and give some predictive thoughts, because for the most part I spend a lot of time just recapping what happened the week before. And if you are a person that has thoughts on, hold on a second, I gotta look at something. Anyway, that was a weird thing for Trey Wingo to say. Whatever. Wow. Looking at weird stuff on Twitter, and I needed to stop distracting myself. So it is the day after Thanksgiving, so I guess it's Black Friday for people who care about shopping and stuff like that. There is going to be Thursday Night Football on Friday, so we have not lost that age-old tradition of, Monday Night Football on Saturday? Is that what it is usually? NFL Sunday on Saturday? We've gotten past that point and all that kind of jazz like that. Sorry if the glare is really messing with you in terms of what's on my glasses and everything. I know a good chunk of you weren't even paying attention to that, but we are working on getting better lighting overall. We are going to spend some time and talk about every single team in the NFL, what I think about their current season, what I think that they could do coming up, because there's only a couple weeks left in the season overall, but there's still a lot left up in the air as to who's going to be in the playoffs and who's not. I went to the New York Times, because New York Times owns The Athletic now, I believe. They use their playoff predictor to determine who they believe is actually going to make the playoffs. And some of these teams that have like a 90 percent chance of making the playoffs are looking a little sus. We're going to talk about each one of them and what their flaws are, what their bonus, what they're good at, and what they've been really tough at, what they've been really bad at this entire season so far. It'll make a lot more sense. It's just me kind of spewing out my thoughts about each one of these teams. It's nothing creative, nothing too revolutionary or anything like that. It's what a lot of podcasts are doing. I thought that I finally get an episode where I don't just rattle off a bunch of numbers and stats and stuff like that, and I talk about what I actually think about these teams that's not connected to the game that they played that week. So let's take it from the top. Let's talk about the AOC so far. These are the top 7 seeds in the AOC so far. Number 1, it is the New England Patriots, who have a 99% chance because they are one of the best teams in terms of record overall. Like we talked about before, I think last episode of the show, the Patriots are 4 wins away from tying the second best season they've ever had. The first best season obviously is the 16-0 season, but if they can get to 15 wins, which based off the way they've been playing so far, 15 wins is definitely in the picture. When you saw how they played against the Bengals, you saw something that actually was more about the Bengals playing better than the Patriots playing worse. I will say one key thing that is happening is that Will Campbell is going on IR for seemingly, I think it's bare minimum, the next 4 weeks, so he won't be back until possibly the playoffs. I think some people have underestimated just how much Will Campbell has developed as an offensive lineman throughout the course of this season. He's played against some of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and when he gets to the playoffs, he's going to be, quote-unquote, battle-tested. I hate doing references about football players in regards to stuff like war and stuff like that because it's nowhere near the same category. But thinking about where the Patriots were at the start of this season, one, the Patriots have one of the easiest schedules going into the playoffs, which you could say, and you can make an argument that has helped them a lot because they are one of the least injured teams so far in the season overall, I would say. But for the most part, we came in here, we saw a lot of really good stuff from Drake May last season, right? We saw Drake May look pretty good overall last season, and very rarely do you see like a linear continuation of that success for NFL football players. It's even crazier that the Patriots have been able to do it essentially with back-to-back guys. Because if you look at, like after Tom Brady, they drafted Mac Jones. Mac Jones was supposed to be the bridge quarterback. Mac Jones is still really good. He just wasn't good enough to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots for like 16 games in a row with the team that they had assembled with Bill Belichick in charge of it, right? We've seen that Mac Jones has the juice, right? We've watched him play for the 49ers, and we've seen what he's been able to do. That's not what a backup quarterback looks like in the NFL. There's a real chance that come free agency, because I think he's actually, I was listening to the Dominique Foxworth show, which, by the way, if you are a person who likes to hear smart people talk about football, you should listen to Dominique Foxworth. One, he has Mina Kimes on a regular basis, and then two, he's a former NFL player. He's not only that, he's a really smart individual human being. I like listening to his show because they kind of approach football in a pretty casual sense, but they talk to Mina Kimes every single week. And also, since we're here, it's that I'll be honest, I've been drinking some whiskey. I've been eating a lot of good food today, so I'm going to be, talk about a lot of stuff about myself and personally, but you should be subscribed to anything that Mina Kimes does. If you're one of those weirdos who's like real racist or sexist towards Mina Kimes, please unsubscribe. I really would appreciate it if you just go the fuck away. Mina knows a shit ton about football. We are both Seahawks fans, and for the most part, Mina is one of the most dynamic TV personalities in the game. There's a reason that Nick Wright is concerned about her out of all the other people who are on TV on a regular basis in terms of the sports field. Whatever. Moving on. Actually, we're not moving on. But I was saying, I was listening to the Dominique Foxworth show, and they mentioned how, Mac Jones is still under contract, so anybody who would trade for him would have to trade for him and then more than likely sign him to an extension. So that kind of devalues him a little bit, but there's room for, I would imagine, with the way things have been going for the Vikings, he might be the kind of guy that they're looking at, especially, for one, J.J. McCarthy started like 7 games in his entire NFL career so far, and we're going to talk about the in the hunt teams too, but J.J. McCarthy started like 7 games, and people are already writing him off, and I feel like we're just repeating the same lesson that we learned with Mac Jones. Daniel Jones, who has played ridiculously well. Matthew Stafford, in some people's cases, they just refuse to believe. There's some people who just refuse to believe that Matthew Stafford is actually good at football, and now he's probably going to be MVP. Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. I mean, how many times can you be this stupid in a row to just kind of like bail on people who show a little bit of talent? Anyway, if losing to J.J. McCarthy makes you a bad team, that means the Detroit Lions suck ass at football, which I actually do believe. But whatever. The Patriots overall, they're a team that started off with kind of like an air of mystery around them. A lot of that mystery was around whether or not Drake May was going to be able to elevate a wide receiver group that a lot of people didn't have a ton of faith in. They went out and got Stephon Diggs. They have Kayshon Boutte, who basically tried to torpedo his way out of the Carolina Panthers as soon as possible, as soon as he got drafted there and stuff like that. And he eventually found his way to the New England Patriots a couple of years ago, or was it Patricia Traynor, who we've had on this podcast before, and we talked about the New England Patriots before with her, and she's been covering the team for a long, long time. Really really good. One of the few women in all sports writing, just in general, especially when it comes to like covering a franchise team. But She wrote an article about how like the Patriots literally had like the worst wide receiver group in the NFL a year ago, and now it feels like they've completely flipped it over with Demario Douglas, who I think just kind of came out of nowhere. Now he's like a big play wide receiver. Basically every time he touches the ball, it's like 15, 20 yards down the field. It's kind of crazy. Stephon Diggs, plus Kayshon Boutte, and a couple other guys, plus Mac Hollins, who we talked about on this podcast like 3 years ago in his breakout season with the Miami Dolphins. He continues to improve on that season that he had a couple years ago. Anyway, plus nobody, I don't think anybody expected that the Patriots are going to be leading the way in terms of like the tight end revolution that we're starting to see when people run 13 personnel, right? Hunter Henry and man, I always forget their other guy. Hunter Henry and their other tight end. I forget his name. Is it Austin Hooper? Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, who has like the craziest backstory in all of NFL football for the most part. But those guys being able to compile all together to become one of the best offenses in the NFL is like a real thing. Plus, now they have a real run game. Like Trevion Henderson has emerged. They still have Ramondre Stevenson in case things go horribly wrong or whatever. But to draft that well in just 1 year with Mike Vrabel in charge of the team is pretty impressive. Mike Vrabel, once again, proving that he actually is good at this whole football coaching thing, and I think it says something a little bit more about the Titans than it does anything else. But especially considering like Harold Landry's having, I believe, like a career year. I think his season high or his career high in like sacks like 7, and he's already gotten to that mark, and we're at week 12 of the NFL season. So the Patriots at 99% in terms of what they're able to do as a team makes a ton of sense. There's been very few times where they've really had their backs up against the wall, and ironically enough, one of those times was against the Atlanta Falcons a couple of weeks ago. But for the most part, man, a lot of the Patriots' success is definitely due to the quality of teams that they've been playing overall. But when they've played against big-time teams, they come up with big wins. Remember, they were the first team to beat the Buffalo Bills to start up the season, and then kind of lead towards this slow descent to where the Buffalo Bills are, where they're 7-4. But they're a real shaky 7-4. I think we can all admit that. But number 2 on the list, the Broncos. Oh, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't. So this is a combination of things. Those things are. This is a combination of. The AFC West is weird, right? Like the Chargers are kind of falling apart because they don't have an offensive line, so they don't have the offensive presence that they had a year ago. And so a lot of stuff in terms of them being able to be successful as a football team is now falling upon their defense. To go out there and make it happen, and that's just not the case. That's just not happening for them overall. They are not a team that is built around their defense. They're a team that is built around a ridiculously good quarterback. They're getting Omarion Hampton back for the back half of the season, which is going to be huge for them, even though Kamani Vidal has done a really good job. But now I think knowing that you have 2 running backs that you can count on could help a lot in terms of what's going on with Justin Herbert. Because if the passing game is going to be struggling in terms of like pass protection up front, that means that you're going to have a lot more people who can make plays really close to the line of scrimmage, which means running backs, tight ends, and stuff like that. But it's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey, and I think part of that is the Broncos have, one, they've played well. I'm not going to sit here and say that they haven't played well. The Broncos have probably, if they had an average offense in the NFL, the Broncos would hands down be the number 1 defense in the NFL, and that's saying a lot. I'm a big Houston Texans fan, obviously. I'm from Houston. I'm a Seahawks and a Texans fan. If it was not for the fact that their offense basically plays 2 drives per game, and pretty much every game they've played this season, they play offense 2 drives per game, and they're 9-2 so far on the season, which is probably why a lot of people believe in them being able to make it to the Super Bowl and actually win when it's all said and done. But if there was one, out of all 7 of these teams listed here, there's 2 teams that I don't trust at all. It's the Broncos and the Jaguars. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, the Broncos are locked in here, man. They're 96%. The Chiefs lost today. It's Thursday Night Football. On Thursday Night Football, Thanksgiving Day, the Chiefs lost, which obviously helps the Broncos take another massive step towards locking up the division. There's nobody in the AFC that is technically eliminated from the playoffs, but if the Chiefs are basically done. And if they lose again, they are done. There's no question. I feel like we've been saying, because I remember saying that a week ago, because if they lost to the Colts, it was essentially over. Speaking of the Colts, they're number 3 on this list. You would think that a team that's been having literally the best offensive season in the history of their entire franchise, including all those times that they had that guy like Peyton Manning on their team, you would think that they would be in a better position overall, but they're just the 3 seed. And considering, everybody said the AFC South sucks, even though the numbers don't back that up. It is. It's interesting that they're just in the 3 seed. Obviously, one game makes a massive difference when you're at the top of the table. But right now, they're looking like they're just going to be a division winner. They're going to be the number 1 division winner without a bye, which kind of sucks because that means you still have to do the extra work of playing a wild card weekend, but you get to get the lowest seed that's in the playoffs, which, in case you're not looking at the listing here, could be the Bills. That'd be kind of crazy, right? But anyway. It could be the Bills or the Jaguars, depending on what happens, because if there was ever a team that's going to fall off the rails in the back half of their season, it looks like it could be the Jaguars. Speaking of falling off the rails, the Colts and what they've been able to do, they probably have the real MVP, the people's champ, even though Jonathan Taylor has outperformed Matthew Stafford. I think we can all safely say that. He has carried an entire team. On his back, Matthew Stafford is having a year like no other. He's never even gotten a single MVP vote, if I'm not mistaken, but if for my money, it is Jonathan Taylor that is the MVP of the season. The Colts are having this season because Jonathan Taylor is 100% healthy this year. He has not been hurt at all. Obviously, he's still hurting in some way. He's a running back in the NFL. He's in pain all the time, but he has not missed a single game. He probably hasn't even missed a single snap that he actually wanted to play in. But the Colts overall, man, they look like the most balanced team in the NFL. We're finding out today. This is like recent information. Apparently, Daniel Jones has like a fracture in his leg, and he's going to play through it. So, I don't know how that's supposed to pan out when it's all said and done, but if there was the last couple of games has definitely shaken, I believe, a lot of people's faith in what the Colts are capable of doing, because there's been so many people this whole season writing on the fact that at some point Daniel Jones is just going to fall apart. I don't know if I'm one of those people. I'm not a hater like that. It is cool to see Daniel Jones be successful, but I would also like to point out Daniel Jones' success as a quarterback at almost every single step, actually at every single step of his career, is directly correlated. And I actually was in the Colts Reddit because I'm in the Reddit for every NFL team, but I was in the Colts Reddit, and I'm like, a lot of people want to give Daniel Jones credit for that one really good season he had like 2 years ago or whatever, and I'm like, he did not have a good season. Saquon Barkley had a great season, and Daniel Jones was able to benefit from the greatness of a running back that was next to him. And once again, we find ourselves in the same exact situation, a running back who's literally breaking records, like changing the way that we perceive what a singular running back can do in the modern era of football. Jonathan Taylor should be MVP, and more than likely, the shitty thing that's going to happen is he's going to get second place in the MVP voting, even though he's probably going to end up with 20-plus touchdowns and maybe 2,000 yards when it's all said and done. But who knows? That, with the Colts, though, the biggest question for them not only is obviously Daniel Jones, but also the other stuff in terms of like what the defense is going to be fully capable of doing when they do make it to the playoffs. Are they going to be able to really kind of look like they did in the first half of the season, where they were pretty much locked down, right? Like they were a super dominant defense up front, mainly because of their pass rush was really good, but they've had a lot of injuries in the secondary. They've actually had a lot of shuffling in the secondary as well, too. Don't forget, they do have Sauce Gardner, but they had the whole Leonard situation earlier this season where he came back for one game and then decided he was going to retire and stop playing football. Kind of crazy. But anyway, they got Sauce Gardner. They have a new layer of their defense that they can count on, and we're still waiting to see it kind of like solidify to what it could possibly be. And that's what I think is like the biggest thing with a lot of these playoff teams, a lot of these teams that are not going to make the playoffs. They're having injuries, like for instance at the offensive line position. There's a lot of injuries for a lot of teams, and overall, basically what happens is like you can't expect an NFL offensive line to gel completely in 1 week. It's just not going to happen. But moving on, number 4 on the list, the Ravens have an 86% chance. By the way, the percentages next to the names are all their percentage chances of making the playoffs at this point, through week 12 of the season. The Ravens are pretty much locked in, which is crazy because they have had the sketchiest rise from the grave, right? Like they were in the grave, and I think they would be the ultra rare outlier in the history of the NFL to make the playoffs after the way that their season started, because I think they started like 1-2 or something like that, and you can't, like statistically, you don't make the playoffs if you start with less than, I think like 1-4. I have to look it up, but the way the Ravens started this season is basically the death nail for most NFL teams, and maybe the extra game is changing the math on how your start to the season affects where you end up. Also, one thing that could change it is a prolific level quarterback in Lamar Jackson. We have not seen the dramatic return of Derrick Henry like we've all been expecting, and I just want to take some time, and I feel like I never get a chance to say this on the show because I'm always talking about the current game that they play, but when it comes to the Ravens and running the ball up front, Derrick Henry had a 2,000-yard rushing season last year, deep playoff run. you are supposed to suck the following year. You think just because you took 3 months off that you fully recovered and you're the same running back you were before the season prior, and that's just not how football works. Derrick Henry is truly an anomaly when it comes to how football works functional wise, age, number of carries that he's able to, the kind of speed that he has as a guy at his size, right? Derrick Henry physically is outside of the box on every single category possibly. Plus, he's super disciplined on his diet and all this kind of stuff like that too. It's ridiculous that we all thought he was going to come back and be the exact same guy. It's just not the case. What we are seeing though, and I think that's what the bigger issue is that Lamar Jackson has opted out of being the dual threat quarterback, which I don't think we see all that often for the most part, because there's a lot of guys who, when they're labeled dual threat, they try to be dual threat and they lean into the running more when things go wrong. And Lamar Jackson is doing the opposite of it in the sense that he is hey man, I'm a quarterback. My job is to sit back here in this pocket. These dudes supposed to protect me, and I'm supposed to distribute this ball, which means that it puts a lot more pressure on the wide receivers to go out there and make plays for themselves instead of Lamar Jackson making plays for the wide receivers. We've seen he's already had the hamstring injury. There's a lot of argument and a lot of visual assumption and evidence that Lamar Jackson is still hurt. For instance, this past week, he still had his leg. He had his ankles taped up. Again, I think this is the second week in a row since he's come back that he's had his ankles taped up. So there could be something going on there. I'm assuming, unless, because I do have the Baltimore Ravens winning the Super Bowl. So I'm assuming if that doesn't happen, we're going to hear some report about Lamar Jackson getting surgery on his ankle in the offseason, and that'll be what people chalk up to why he wasn't able to go out here and have another MVP level season. Anyway, the Ravens have really turned it around and become the big playoff threat that they are, because their defense is finally starting to play like the entity that we all thought that they were going to be. They dropped Kyle Hamilton into the box. They have Elodie Gilman, who played for the Chargers. Crazy enough that the Chargers let him go. Obviously, when they have Derwin James, you think of the safety position, they'd be locked up. But the Ravens playing a 3-safety system with Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, who are physically similar because they're both 6'4", with a crazy athletic ability, plus having Elodie Gilman, who's a really good tackler, has great instincts, and plays really well in open space. Having all three of those guys rotating around, moving in different spots on the field to fill the gaps for the defense, to help out the linebackers when it comes to defending the run, forcing the opponent to throw the ball where they do have the advantage. For as much as I don't like Marlon Humphrey, he is very good at his job. And then on top of that, Nate Wiggins is also proven himself to be stupidly good as well. The 3-safety system is rotated around, and it is panned out for them drastically well. And it is because they have three dudes who are absolute anomalies at their position, right? I mentioned it last week when the Chargers were taking on the Jaguars, and the Jaguars were just destroying them by utilizing their tight ends and their players out of the backfield, and how it was a prime example of why people covet guys like Derwin James so much, because they need people who can stop extra linebackers from having to be on the field. They are able to run the ball up the gut, but if you have good enough safeties, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And guess who has good enough safeties? The Ravens. They got three of them. They got three really good ones. Anyway, but yeah, that's what the Ravens situation is. It's a little up and down. It's a little touch and go for them, but for the most part, the way that the AFC North is shaking out with the Browns, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Steelers, who are both falling apart essentially, right? Outside of the Steelers, who kind of have some semblance of life, but for the most part, the AFC North is one of the worst divisions in the NFL, and that's why the Ravens are going to be the worst team to win a division, to possibly the worst division champ. So we'll see. The Chargers currently sitting at 7-4. Their biggest issue, and it just keeps rearing its ugly head. They get caught in this vicious cycle of they have short drives, right? Because teams know that they can get to Justin Herbert with 4 or with 3, depending upon their base set. And then when they blitz, they're able to get to Justin Herbert and create mistakes. That being a formula for a playoff team and how to defend them is tough, because the Jaguars last week, the Jaguars going into that were one of the worst teams in terms of generating sacks, and Justin Herbert was getting destroyed in that game. So look at the teams that are above the Chargers on this list: the Ravens, the Colts, the Broncos, and the Patriots. Every single one of them has not just one guy that they depend upon to go out there and get sacked, but they got multiple. The Chargers are currently in line to end up possibly, depending upon how it all shakes out, they could end up playing the Broncos in the first round, and I can't imagine that there's anything less than 10 sacks on the board for the Broncos when they play against the Chargers in their current state. But yeah, they are a team that is a wild card spot. A lot of that is due to some of the absolutely absurd stuff that we've seen that we've seen from Justin Herbert this season with the way that their offensive line has been shaking out overall. But yeah, the Chargers being second in the AFC West is going to be massive, but they got a lot more games in the back half of this to determine whether or not they're going to end up playing. Moving on to the team that I actually think will not make the playoffs, and is the number 6 Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Texans are going to be the wild card team out of the AFC South with the way things are going right now. I know CJ Stroud is just coming back from the concussion, but it really felt like, and maybe it'll be different with CJ in there, maybe because he has different eyes than Davis Mills, who now is a grizzled vet. Don't know if that's the exactly accurate way to describe him, but CJ Stroud's ability at the quarterback position, combined with what we've seen from the Texans, not only defensively but offensively, the offensive line has played really well the last 4 weeks, including even when they were playing against the Broncos, they held up pretty well. And if that's the case, this is a prime example of like offensive line gelling together late in the season. Combine that with CJ Stroud, we might be cooking with grease. We might be doing with some grease here. But yeah, it makes me heavily question the Jaguars. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, man. Everybody on the Jaguars is really good at their job except one guy. And that one guy just so happens to be the dude that touches the ball every single play on offense. And everybody else is amazing. Parker Washington is having a career year. We're starting to see Jacoby Myers get the ball a little bit more, but they've got Buechele, who's been doing really good at the running back position. Travis Etienne. I keep mixing them up because Trevor Etienne exists. But Trevor Etienne is who I'm talking about. Travis plays for the Panthers. Trevor Etienne has been killing it so far at the running back position, which has helped a lot of these situations where the Jaguars are actually winning, because when Trevor's killing it, it means guess who doesn't have to touch the ball? The guy that we don't want touching the ball. The Jaguars were one of the better turnover generating defenses in the NFL, but as the season has gone on, they have not done nearly well enough to be able to win a bunch of games. All 4 of their wins are directly correlated to those are games where they did not generate a single turnover. A lot of their wins are definitely due to their schedule. For the most part, they are the sketchiest looking team in the NFL that is going into the playoffs. Speaking of sketchy teams in the playoffs, the Bills are currently have an 80% chance they're going to be out of the AFC East. They're going to be in second place versus the second place right underneath the Patriots. Right, I think the Bills have one more game versus the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken, but the deadliest 7 seed in the history of the playoffs, easily hands down, because we've seen it before, right? Like the whole MO this season has been sometimes the Bills forget that they have James Cook as a running back and they forget to run the ball a little bit too much. They put too much pressure on Josh Allen to go out there and throw the ball really well, and it shows, right? There's a lot of times where they put the pressure on Josh Allen to throw the ball, and then Josh Allen's best trick is throw the ball to Khalil Shakir underneath and then have him cook, right? They get Khalil open a lot. Khalil has been amazing the last couple of years for him, but the lack of investment in the wide receiver position is like super obvious, right? When they have Dalton and they have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, their offense is amazing because they can combine those 3. They can combine Dalton, Dawson, and Khalil together to make a pass catching core, if you will. Plus James Cook, they have a really balanced offense, and then of course all the crazy shit that Josh Allen's able to do by himself with his legs and everything like that. But defensively, the issue is obvious. They cannot defend the run right now. It has gotten a little bit better. They got one of their defensive tackles off IR, a guy who they drafted last year. Drafted in 2024. He was on IR for a little while. Now he's back. And they've defended the run a little bit better. But for the most part, man, everybody, the last 6 weeks, they've just been running through like paper, bro. Like it's like those paper banners on Friday nights that the high school players run through, man. It's crazy how bad the run defense has been for the Bills. And if you can't control the clock, you can't control the game. And that's the testament to what we've seen so far from the Bills overall. Moving on, let's talk about the teams that are in the hunt in the AFC. Pittsburgh Steelers, that is a lie. They are out of it. Offensively, they are extremely limited. DK Metcalf is having one of his worst seasons as an NFL player, and I'm sure he's super pissed about that. I can't imagine what DK must be like in practice for the Steelers. Anyway, the team that is blazing hot right now in the NFL and could be doing the thing. If you guys don't know, at one point a couple years ago, the Texans went on a 10-game win streak to go to the playoffs and ended up having one of their best playoff runs ever, because the Texans in the wildcard game, I think, are they're 3-1 or 4-1 all time in wildcard games or something. When they get into a wildcard game, they usually win because they usually end up playing the Bengals or they end up playing the Bengals or the Raiders, because there was like a good chunk of time where every time the Texans made the playoffs, they played the Bengals and beat them. It was really weird because it would end up with Andy Dalton coming to Houston. And if you guys don't know, Andy's from Houston, Texas. He's from a town. It's not even a town. I guess technically Katy is a town. It is a part of Houston. It's a place that's annexed into Houston. It's called Katy, Texas, and that's where Andy Dalton is from. And so a lot of his worst nightmares in the playoffs have happened in his hometown, which is crazy to think about. But it is true. That's how football works out, especially in Texas. The Kansas City Chiefs, man, dude. I mean, it's hard to think that because if you guys don't, this is coming from like the distant future, aka Thursday. This is Friday morning after Thanksgiving. The Chiefs lost. The Chiefs lost to the Dallas. Sorry, why did I say that? The Chiefs lost on Thursday night to the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they did. It was 6-6. The Cowboys pulled off like another crazy comeback because they are now the first team since 2016 to beat both Super Bowl playing teams. Shout out Mark Fisher, who's like a Cowboys insider. But yeah, like they beat the Eagles and they beat the Chiefs in back-to-back weeks and handed them both L's after comeback wins because their first drive they ended with like a crazy interception, and then they were the more dominant team throughout the course of this game. The Kansas City Chiefs offense is just completely off the rails. They don't attack the underneath stuff as much as I've seen them do in the past, which is kind of weird to me for the most part, but they don't. So the ball movement has been a little weird. They had Isaiah Pacheco in this game. He had a couple of big runs, but the Chiefs, obviously, on this list of teams that we're looking at, they're the team that's most likely to end up winning one of the wild card spots and possibly bumping the Chargers out of their current spot that they're in. But for the most part, the Chiefs and the Texans are the best looking teams that are on this list still, because once again, in the AFC, technically nobody is eliminated from the playoffs, which is kind of wild because there's some crazy scenario where the Titans end up in the playoffs. Don't know how that's possible. Maybe it's one of those situations where, hey man, the Titans lose this week and it's just like there's no way anything goes off the rails. But I guess the Titans could win their next 5 games in a row, and the Texans could lose all of their games, and then the Texans and Jaguars could lose all of their games, and it would put the Texans, Titans, and Jaguars tied, or the Titans would be up 1 game or something like that, and they'd have 7 wins, and the Jaguars and Texans would have 6, or the Jaguars and the Texans would have 6. Yeah, I guess that's what the scenario is. So I guess it does come down to this week. It does come down to whether the Titans win this week or lose this week, which I don't know if you guys see that they're 1-10. I got a strange inkling of what's going to happen this week for the Titans. We'll see. They did look really good versus the Seahawks, though, this past weekend in Week 12. They looked really good in the back half of the game, but for the most part, the Seahawks kind of ran away with it, man. The Titans gave up too many big plays, and that's what really screwed them over. JSN went crazy on them. Anyway, the Dolphins, if there was a team, they're the team that has the most hope, but is most unlikely to actually make anything come out of it, because the Bills and the Patriots are two of the better teams in the AFC overall, not just in their division. And the Dolphins do have a key win over the Bills to help in this situation. I would also like to point out the Dolphins played the Patriots in one of their closer games this entire season. It literally came down to the final drive of the game, and it was like Week 5 or something like that. And so it's not a surprise, but the Dolphins are a team that had to rediscover themselves, and it took an entire football season to figure out how to rediscover themselves. The rediscovering was, hey man, we should run the ball because we have one of the best running backs in the NFL. Who would have thought? The Bengals, they did get Joe Burrow back from the future, right? They did get Joe Burrow back. They dismantled the Ravens, which means that there's some crazy playoff scenario where they still end up, they could take the AFC North from the Ravens. We'll see. The Browns, 3-8, there's zero chance. To me, there's zero chance, and I'll say it safely here. The Browns are eliminated from the playoffs, guys. The Raiders, they are. It is nothing short of a miracle that the Raiders have 2 wins this season, and they played the Bears close at home at one point during this season, which I think should be an indicator of the Bears for the most part. But yeah, the Browns, Raiders, Jets, and Titans. These teams are done. The Dolphins. Done, in my opinion as well. They could finish the season strong, which obviously could help save Mike McDaniel's job, because I still think there's a weird world where he finishes out this season and they fire him immediately on Black Monday, and then of course obviously he'll be rearing to go for the playoffs, because he's gonna be hanging out with some playoff team, and maybe it'll be like Matt LaFleur, because if you don't know, Mike McDaniels has some very powerful friends in the world of the football, in the football world, and they all just so happen to be head coaches. I doubt he'd end up with the 49ers, but it would be cool if they got the gang back together one more time, because the 49ers are foretold by the prophecy. They are foretold to go to at least the NFC Championship game. So we'll see how that goes. If you don't know, go look that weird stat up where it's like the 49ers swing back and forth between not making the playoffs and then going to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, which would be crazy. But I guess it's a testament to Kyle Shanahan overall. Most of these teams in the hunt, like I said, the only teams that have like a legitimate shot at actually getting out of in the hunt and in the mix are the Texans and the Chiefs to me. Everybody else, they are everybody else, these teams lose this weekend, it's over. It is donezo for me. I would have a hard time basically because so many of them have such massive flaws, man. Like the offense for the Steelers is just non-existent for the most part. Unless they hit home runs, it's just not there. Unless it's Jalen Warren, it's just not there. Miami Dolphins, obviously, they're starting to get a better grip on like how to run their team in a position to be able to win, which is why I think they have a small, teeny, tiny shot. The Bengals did get Joe Burrow back, which is going to be massive, obviously, for their offense. Their defense, for 2 weeks in a row, looked actually kind of good. They played against the Patriots pretty well overall in terms of like generating pressure on Drake May, which helped early on in the game, but overall, the Patriots still ended up winning in the end because of the offensive inconsistency of the Bengals. So it makes you wonder, like, could they get that playoff spot with their shitty defense? Who knows? Or maybe it was just a 2-game fluke. Who knows? At the end of the season, weird things happen. The Browns, they're probably going to get way more headlines than any of these teams that are in the hunt outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, mainly because of the Shedeur Sanders situation. And here's my take on it. Shedeur is quarterback in the NFL who is the son of the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. People should be focusing on him as a key story, right? Like Shiloh Sanders, every time he gets picked up by a team or ends up back on the Buccaneers, it is a thing that the NFL social media teams pick up because they know that both of these teams have all these guys have massive fandoms. They've been on TV since they were in high school. I was listening to part of my take, and I have to remember that these guys are stupid sometimes because, like, at one point, PFT was trying to convince us that all the fandom for Shedeur is just like a false flag operation because all the fans came out of nowhere, and it's just like I have to remember that they are the whitest of the whitest podcast that I listen to, and they just don't understand and haven't been paying attention to Shedeur at all. Shedeur's been on TV since he was in high school. They literally had a TV show dedicated to when he went to Prime Prep, and then when he also played for Trinity High School in Dallas or whatever, and they had like a whole mini documentary on their high school football team and stuff like that. Then he went to college at Jackson State. It was a massive deal because they got Travis Hunter to go, and then went to Colorado and got drafted, right? So he's been a big deal for a long time, and a lot of people have faith in him because obviously got to root for everybody black if you're a black person, and then two, the dude is really popular with the youths of America. I'm 33 years old. I like Shedeur. I like I'm not going to sit here and tell you I can assess his game and tell you what he's good at and what he's bad at. All I know is he went up against a team that is marketably worse than the Browns. The Raiders are probably the worst team in the NFL. Like, the Titans have shown more flashes of potential, more flashes of success than the Titans have, or the Raiders have all season for me. And I think, they did play each other already, and the Raiders ended up winning, but it was still like, geez, man. It shocks me that the Raiders have 2 wins. But for the most part, that's all it really comes down to, man. Like, the Raiders have like a couple of spare parts in terms of like guys that look like they're going to be a part of a team that's good in 3 years, maybe, if it all shakes out the correct way. If the offensive line plays better. By the way, if you have some time and you want to look at some cool nerd shit in terms of football, the Browns mic'd up Myles Garrett versus the Raiders, and you can watch him get double teamed literally every single time that he was in the game, and then he still got 3 sacks. So it's fun. I hope somewhere out there somebody, and I hope it's either the NFL or the Browns, if you want to get 1 million views on a YouTube video, just get like slow-mo and regular speed. Like a video, like they had this one, the NFL put this video out last year, and it was like every sack that Max Crosby had last year, but in slow motion. Just do that for Myles Garrett because he's very clearly going to break the sack record. Like, it's going to happen, and I'm so excited because Myles Garrett is that, like, he's just too cool, man. Like, he's just too cool of a guy, man. Like, he's living a lot of football players' dreams. Off the field, the dude is fucking sick. He's so dope. He took the money. He's not being a jerk about it. He's like, I took the money, and I'm going to make the most money, and we're not going to win. We're not even going to sniff the playoffs, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write my name in the history books. I respect it, bro. I respect the grind. He is not running from the grind. That is what I'll say. Anyway, everything else about the AFC, the Raiders, it is The Jets and the Titans have played better than the Raiders all season, and yet the Raiders have the same number of wins as the Jets, and they have more wins than the Titans. And I'll say this much: the Jets are this year's team of one possessions, right? If they had started Tyrod Taylor throughout the entirety of the season, there is the Jets may legitimately be in competition at the top of the in-hunt list. And I'm dead serious about that. That's all I got to say on that. Nobody has eliminated the AFC playoffs so far. We'll move on to the NFC. Same thing. The percentages listed are the percentage chance that these teams have to make the NFL playoffs. So taking it off top, the team that looks like they can be the best in the entirety of the NFL, it is the LA Rams. They are playing in one of the, if not the toughest division in the NFL so far. That's the NFC West, where the Cardinals have one of their defenses, yet their offense is led by their backup QB, and they kind of put up a little bit of fight for the most part. They have the Seattle Seahawks, who have one of the better teams in the NFL, who are going to make the playoffs when it's all said and done. And the shitty part is the Seahawks are probably going to finish one game under the Rams and still be a wild card team. When it's all said and done, they might be wild card too. If you're looking at the rankings, the Seahawks are slated to be the 5 seed right now. They have 8 wins, which is the same number of wins as all the other division leaders, except the Buccaneers, because they have 2 more wins than the Buccaneers do, because the NFC South is ass again. Well, not really ass. The NFC South only has 2 good teams again, and it's strangely enough the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Weird. Moving on, the Rams, their formula is real simple, man. They establish the run, and then they let Matthew Stafford let that thing rip, man. They lost one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Cooper Kupp, and they have somehow gotten better at throwing the ball down the field. Crazy work, man. Obviously, Sean McVay has also been a big leader in terms of the 13 personnel stuff with the double tight ends and sometimes triple tight end formations that are out there. They've got Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers of our time. They've also got Puka Nacua, who is easily becoming one of the best wide receivers of our time. This is back-to-back years where he's like top 3 in every single category. At one point during this year, before he hurt his ankle, he was number 1 in every category, and now that's just JSN, who is on. And by the way, JSN is on track to end up with 2,000 yards. Yeah, real normal shit. 2,000 receiving yards. Crazy shit, man. Yeah, that's how crazy the NFC West is. The Rams are 9-2. The Seahawks are 8-3, just behind them. And if the Cardinals were in another division, they probably have more wins. And then also the 49ers are 8-4. So remember the Seahawks still. I don't feel like I'm talking about the NFC West as a whole. Remember, the Seahawks as a whole are kind of the most fucked in this situation. They have lost to the 49ers because remember they lost their season opener to the 49ers off of like a game-winning pick from now out for the season, Nick Bosa. Crazy, right? The 49ers they've been getting torn apart every single step of the way. They've been on the road for most of this season. Now for the back half of this, they're going to be at home for most of these games. They got Brock Purdy back. They got Jawan Jennings back temporarily because I thought at one point Jawan Jennings hurt his wrist during Monday Night Football, but apparently he's good. There's a non-existent chance, and I said it last week, and I feel really bad about it now. I said it last week. I thought there was a chance that Brandon Ayuk was coming back this season, and now all the reports have been the 49ers are trying to literally cut Brandon Ayuk so they can get their money back because that's how bad his recovery has been, I guess. And maybe it was because he's not doing every single step of their recovery that they want him to do, like Christian Wilkins when he broke his foot and he refused to get surgery, I believe it was. They wanted him to get I think he has a Liz Frank injury, and they wanted him to get surgery, and he chose not to. He chose to rehab it by himself, and so they ended up cutting him and recouping the money for the Dolphins I think it was the Dolphins, right? Anyway, Rams overall, if not, all the teams in the NFL, the Colts and the Rams are the most balanced team in the NFL. And obviously the Rams have a huge step forward because their quarterback is Matthew Stafford. A couple of years ago, the Rams were one of the biggest jokes in the NFL. And now they are once again back in the conversation for being Super Bowl champions. It's crazy to think about because remember, this is also the team that preached the mantra of fuck them picks. So apparently not. Apparently the picks worked, bro. You want to talk about the epitome of what good scouting looks like? It's the Rams. Because pretty much every person that they think the last 2 years is really panned out for them almost instantaneously in terms of being a starter. The Eagles, 8-3. Sketchiest 8-3 team we've seen since the Eagles 2 years ago when they were 8-3. For the most part, their offense is non-existent. The run game has really struggled. Obviously, Saquon Barkley has taken a step back because, he ran for 2,000 yards last season and should have been MVP. But passing the ball wise, everybody's now getting to that point where they're trying to treat Jalen Hurts like they did when he was in his third year at Alabama. Their team is centered around their defense being successful, because their offense, very similar to the Miami Dolphins. And typically, when I talk about a team that's in the playoff hunt and I compare it to the Miami Dolphins, something's gone horribly awry. And it has. So, for the most part, the Eagles and the Dolphins share this thing in common. They take union-mandated lunch breaks. If you are unfamiliar with what I've been saying all season about the Dolphins, they have 2 quarters every game. It's typically right around the middle of the game. They just take a lunch break, and they don't show up until the fourth quarter. So they don't show up again until the fourth quarter. And the Eagles tend to do that. Usually it's 1 quarter, but there's a lot of times where it's been the entire second half, and they just like take a lunch break and then go home, which I think a lot of us would think is the dream, where you take like that last hour of when you work and just dip out. Anyway, the Eagles tend to do that too. But when you can't run the ball and it puts more pressure on Jalen Hurts to go out there and make plays, and the offense isn't necessarily built to be passing only, that's kind of stuff that happens. But yeah, they depend on their defense, and they say defense wins championships. It would be nice if the run game magically came back right before the playoffs, but I doubt that's the case. I think there's also something in the back of my mind where I'm like, Nick Sirianni's crazy. He's a madman, and I wouldn't put it past him to spend all this time trying to work on different ways that the team can win games, so that when they get to the playoffs, they're ready to do it. I doubt that's what's happening, though. But I do have it in the back of my mind. I think it's like, one part of me is like, this team is probably trying to work on stuff, because I've seen the Bills try and do this when they play against the Jets. I've seen... What else have I seen do it? I think the Buccaneers are trying to do it a couple of times. Anyway, moving on. 3 seed in the NFC. The NFC North is run by the Chicago Bears. Yeah, I know. It sounds weird to say it out loud. A lot of people are expecting the Bears to absolutely collapse. Ironically enough, the Bears play the Eagles this week, so that's going to be huge for them, because it could knock it won't do anything to the Eagles, because they are so far ahead in their... they are so ridiculously far ahead in their division win, in their division category. I think they could win the division in the next 2 weeks if the Cowboys go 0-2. The Cowboys already did win on Thursday Night Football, but if they had lost and then they lost next week, I think the Eagles would have locked up the division, because that's how bad it is. So we'll talk about the record for the Cowboys when we go to the next page in the hunt category. Moving on, talking about the Bears. Some people call it clutch. Some people call it bad offense. Sometimes it is clutch, sometimes it is bad offense. Sometimes it is very clutch. There's a lot of moments where the Bears are the one-possession team this year. They're one of the one-possession teams this year. We talked about how the Chiefs season from last year was they were in one-possession games like 90% of the season, and they won 80% of those games and were able to get all the way to the Super Bowl, and then they were not in a one-possession game in the Super Bowl. They got destroyed. The Jets have a lot of one-possession losses this season. Ironically enough, strangely enough, for a team that has 2 wins, they have a lot of one-possession losses. If you go back and watch those games, which I do not recommend you do, look, I'm your friend. I want what's best for you, and what's best for you is to not watch Jets football anymore. I'll give you a glimpse on it. What usually happens is the Jets defense keeps it close. The Jets offense has 2 or 3 good drives in the game, and that drive right before the final drive, the penultimate drive, they score on it, and it cuts the lead down to like a 1-possession lead, where if they score on the next drive, the Jets score on their next drive, they win, and then they never score on the drive, because that would require the Jets to score on back-to-back drives this season, which I think they've only done like 3 times. The Bears, a mystery, if you will. Not a lot of mystery. They're not like a super explosive offense. What really helps them out a bunch is when they go up against teams that cannot defend the run, because that's their best asset. They are the Detroit Lions. They actually may be a lot more like the current day Detroit Lions than the Detroit Lions of last year, because they both are, they both are a little sus. And I think the suspect part of the Lions is non-existent, because they're just not good this year. They're not going to make the playoffs, I don't think, which is really sad. Because now they're going to start being like, we need a new quarterback, and they're probably going to take a massive step back trying to get another quarterback and waste some of the talent that they have, because right now they have 2 of the best running backs in the NFL, and then 2 really high-quality wide receivers, when their major issue is the consistency on defense. They have a lot of moments this season where their defense is just absolutely dominated. They almost lost to the Giants, which I think we can all admit it's just Jameis. You know what I mean? A little bit of that was Jameis. They had a couple of key moments where Jameis Winston and the Giants really stood up. Jameis had, I think, like 10 passes that went for over 20 yards. But outside of, Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rush is like non-existent. There's been a lot of times where the secondary has struggled when they don't have the right combination of guys in because they've had a lot of injuries, Kirby Joseph being one of them. Losing Kirby is massive for them. Moving on. We're talking about the Bears. I'm supposed to be talking about the Bears, who have like a 50% chance of making the playoffs, which I think is the highest percent chance they've had of making the playoffs in like 8 years. They are easily the most suspect division leader currently right now. And I feel safe saying that because I've watched all their games. They defensively are like they are like melting butter and a hot knife cutting through it. They are a team that is very similar to the Jaguars, where defensively they don't generate turnovers. They do not win the game. They cannot win games unless their defense generates turnovers. Luckily for them, they have Kevin Byard, who does a pretty good job of that. The pass rush has been like a little up and down, a little suspect for the most part. But but when it comes to the offensive stuff, when they can run the ball, they dominate the game. When they run the ball up front, they control the clock. They typically are able to move and create big explosive plays downfield when they're able to run the ball because so many people are concerned with trying to stop DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, right? And they even, like, Caleb Williams actually gets involved with the run game a bunch too. That's what their biggest thing is. They have certain situations where they have a limited number of situations where they can win. And they have to generate it. As opposed to with the Rams, they have so many ways they can win football games up front, but what they typically end up doing is forcing teams to try and play their style of football. The Eagles, in their situation, they've won games in a lot of different ways this season too. But for the most part, everything is centered around their defense being successful up front to buy them time for their offense to go out there and click. And it has for the most part. That's how you get 8 wins. The Buccaneers, they're currently 6-5. They're currently leading their division. They have the Carolina Panthers bearing down on them, which is one hell of a sentence for me to say out loud on purpose. But it is true. The Buccaneers, the back half of this season, man, they have just fallen flat on their face so many times. They looked spectacular in that game versus the Buffalo Bills, but the 2 games before that, they looked terrible, man. There's a combination of pass rush finally getting to Baker Mayfield, right? Like they had injuries at the beginning of the season that were kind of conducive to that, right? They played that really close Monday Night Football game versus the Texans, and a lot of the reason that game was close is because the Texans' pass rush was so good. But it feels like now the threshold for being able to sack Baker Mayfield is a lot lower, and some of that has to do with pass catching talent. Cade Otton is out of all the Titans who get targeted at the rate that he does, it feels like he may be the least effective of them, and I'll say that much. Wide receiver position-wise, they still don't have Chris Godwin Jr. back, so they're depending on Sterling Shepard to go out there and fill the gap of a guy who was a borderline. I think Chris Godwin was All-Pro like 2 years ago, man. They've lost one of the best wide receivers of our era, and Mike Evans, for the entire season, and they've also been without Bucky Irving for most of the last month and something, and it has paid off big time because we've already seen, like, when the Buccaneers are able to run the ball, that's when their team looks the best. And not to say that Sean Tucker and Rachaad White have not done a good job of filling in. Bucky Irving obviously just gets some more explosive runs up front, man. And he played in their most recent game, but it's going to take him a while to get back to the rate and the level that they were at before, man. It's just defensively, they've given up a ton of explosive plays in the back half of a lot of games, and that's what allows teams to really get over on them. They're starting to find a little bit of pass rush in terms of like generating pressure up front. They've also played a lot of really good teams so far this season, man. Like they've played a pretty intense gauntlet of teams up front. But while the Panthers have not, they played the 49ers, and that's one of the toughest games that they've played this season, and they got destroyed up front. Moving on, the Buccaneers could very easily slip out of this position, but for the most part, I think we're all banking on the Panthers to not have enough consistency to overtake the Buccaneers. And I think they also have one. The Bucs have 2 more games versus the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't played them all this season. Hold on a second. Let me look it up. Panthers schedule. Yeah, so we're all counting on reality to strike here. So the last 5 games, and tell me if this sounds like the Panthers are going to get any of these wins. So they played the Rams this upcoming Sunday, They play the Saints. There's a high percentage they're going to be able to go out there and get that win, but that is a divisional game, so you never know what can happen. The Panthers are playing the Buccaneers. Tough, right? They're playing the Buccaneers, and then they're playing the Seahawks, and then the Buccaneers again. So, yeah, man, I see why we're all banking on them to kind of like fall apart in the back half of the season because that is the toughest stretch of games they've played all year. without question. The number one seed overall. They play the team that's ahead of them in the division, in the Buccaneers twice, and then they play the Seahawks again. They play the Seahawks there, and then they play the Saints, a division rival. They can very well end this season on like a 5-game losing streak. So, moving on, Seahawks are in a tough spot. Like I said before, the NFC West is the toughest division in football. It is absurd what's been going on the last couple of weeks. Because basically, everybody keeps winning. Like the 49ers and the Seahawks all win and they all lose in the same week. And the only time that there's any separation is when they play each other. And they played like legit schedules for the most part. And it looks like the NFC West is, yes, going to get 3 teams in, which shouldn't be that much of a surprise because the 49ers had a win streak going when they had their backup quarterback in. Seahawks, biggest concern, obviously, Sam Darnold holding up in the playoffs, man. The Titans game was tough. The Titans pulled off, I wouldn't say a near comeback. They were way more competitive in the second half than they were in the first. That is a bit of a bummer. There's a lot of times where the 49ers and the Rams have been put in high-pressure situations, and they come out looking good. The Seahawks, out of all the 3 teams in the NFC West that are currently holding playoff spots, they are the quote-unquote least clutch team. And yes, I'm a person that believes in clutch. They are the team that when the scores it's at its tightest, you get the worst out of them overall. But what they're getting a lot better at is controlling the game to force teams to play their way of football. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker Jr. have been on fire the last couple of weeks. They've been really picking up the tempo. It's important to pushing the Seahawks to not have to use Sam Darnold as much. We saw in that Rams game, if we are to believe that the Rams are good, the Seahawks are capable of beating the best team in the NFL. They just need to throw 3 interceptions instead of 4. Yeah. They're easily. It would suck. It's gonna suck for whoever ends up because it looks like the Eagles, right? Yeah, it will be the Eagles. No, the Eagles will get the 49ers. Sucks for them. That's a tough first rounder. The Bears currently in this format, which like I said before, I don't think it's gonna hold. But the Bears in this current format will get the Seahawks, and I can say this right now: the Seahawks are going to steamroll the Chicago Bears. There's no question whatsoever in my mind if that situation does arise. Moving on, let's talk about what teams are in the hunt. How many of these teams are legitimately in the hunt? The Lions, once again, we've talked about this. So all 4 of those losses in the Lions' record are against the only good teams they have played this season. The Lions versus teams that are good at football, 0-4. Those 7 wins, I think, are all teams with losing records currently. The Carolina Panthers, legit shot. They are having a reclamation type season. A lot of it is centered around their defense being successful, plus their run game, and then not having Bryce go out there and have to win the game for them. It's a huge step forward. It makes the decision for the Carolina Panthers on whether or not they're going to pay Lil Bryce a lot more difficult because the Panthers have clearly taken a massive step forward this season. When you watch them play, it is not a fluke. They are able to hang around with teams that are around the above average range in the NFL. Now, when you talk about the really good teams, they're just not in the same category. But for the most part, they have taken a massive step forward. The Dallas Cowboys, their solution was trade away potentially the second best defensive player in the NFL, the second best pass rusher in the NFL, potentially top 10 defensive player in the NFL when it's all said and done. Obviously, the number 1 pass rusher is Myles Garrett, but trade him away and then trade for Logan Wilson, Quinnen Williams, and then the defensive backs have done a really good job in the back half of the season. A lot of that definitely has to do with recovering from injuries that they sustained last season, but getting Logan Wilson, getting Quinnen Williams, a great defensive tackle up front, shutting down the run game of their opponent, forcing them to pass the ball more, which plays more into their strengths than a lot of people believe. The Cowboys look like they're one of these teams that go from in the hunt to taking a spot. Dead serious. I go from in the hunt to taking a spot for sure. The Detroit Lions, they are sitting at the top of this list. They will not be making the playoffs from my perspective. And if they do make the playoffs, it's because their schedule allowed them to be able to. I think they still have a couple more divisional games left as well. But yeah, the Carolina Panthers, I have zero faith with the way the rest of their schedule shows up that they're going to be even in the conversation because they look like they're about to go 0-5, potentially 1-4, get that Saints win. But the Cowboys, they're definitely in the mix. The Atlanta Falcons are completely out of it. Kirk Cousins has shown